For decades, endurance athletes have been told that lactate is the enemy. It's the thing that burns in your legs when you're trying to run fast and that slows you down. But if you still believe that lactate is the enemy, then something really weird is happening. Some of the best endurance athletes in the world are not trying to avoid lactate, they're actually eating it. And Göran used a lactate gel during his sub-2-hour marathon in London. At the same time, lactate gels are also now being used by cyclists at the Tour de France, and some insane performance gains numbers are being used to market these kind of gels. So the obvious question is lactate the next game-changer super fuel for endurance athletes? First, we need to make something clear. When most runners hear the word lactate, they probably think about pain. You go hard in an interval session or in a race and your legs start burning. And it's still very common that people say that it is the lactic acid. But this is one of those things where the explanation and the terminology is simply not correct, but it still continues to live on. Because lactate itself is not just some useless waste product that is sitting in your muscles destroying your performance. In fact, modern evidence has moved pretty far from that idea. George Brooks, who is one of the most important researchers in this area, proposed what is called the lactate shuttle theory. And in this review here from 2018, he describes lactate as having three major roles: an energy source, a glucogenic precursor, and a signaling molecule. So in simple words, lactate can be used as fuel, it can help make new glucose, and it can send important signals in the body. But what about measuring lactate like a lot of pros do to see what intensity they are training on? That actually still makes sense, because the higher lactate numbers you have, the harder the body is typically working. But although blood lactate is an indicator of your intensity, the thing slowing you down is not the lactate itself. It actually helps you. That is why I guess some of these sport nutrition companies started asking the question, could it make sense to take in lactate as a performance enhancing energy source? Could we literally eat lactate during a race or hard trainings and use it to enhance performance? That is the idea behind these new lactate gels that are getting super hyped now, and this is where the story becomes very current, because as mentioned, pros at the very top level of endurance sports are already doing this. At the 2026 London Marathon, Sebastian Saver ran 1:59:30 and Göran ran 1:59:41 in his marathon debut. And that alone is completely insane, of course, but after the race there was also a lot of discussion around fueling. CTU's Mag reported that modern elite marathoners are now aiming to consume roughly twice the amount of carbohydrates during competition compared with just a few years ago. And I have covered the high carb revolution extensively here on the channel, but what wasn't immediately talked about after the race was that Kielcha's strategy had something extra. The Spanish brand Santa Madre says that Kielcha used its new lactate 60 gel as part of his fueling strategy. Each serving of this gel contains 40 grams of carbohydrates, and this is a standard high carb gel to take during a marathon, but it also contained 60 millimoles of lactate. And we're not only seeing this happening in running, in cycling this has become a big story during the Tour de France that is taking place now. A new product called Exolactate has been developed by a group led by Aitor Virbay, a sports scientist. The Times also reported that one unnamed Tour de France team bought up the stock of the product ahead of starting the Tour de France. And honestly, after hearing all of this, I totally understand why people get hyped about this new fueling hack, because the idea is very appealing. So the big question is lactate the next big game changer, or are we just watching very good marketing take place? I mean, look at this ad for one of these lactate gels. This is incredible filmmaking and great marketing. Let's just watch some seconds of it.
Scientific discoveries are constantly redefining the boundaries of human knowledge. What we thought was the limit was just a new summit to climb. Today, a new era begins. A new fuel solution arrives to power the next generation of performance.
So they're claiming that their product improves power output by 5% in 15 to 30 minute endurance effort, and 10% reduction in perceived exertion, and a 12% improved fat oxidation at lower intensities. And I mean, if these values are true, it is an insane game changer, and it should be close to impossible for an endurance athlete to win anything without taking this. I mean, 5% power output for a 30-minute effort, that roughly translates to 1.5 minutes. And 1.5 minutes in a Tour de France time trial or a 10K running race is of course crazy numbers. And don't think that this video is sponsored by them or any other brands pushing these new lactate gels. So although I think that this ad was really cool, purely cinematically, as a filmmaker myself, we need to touch a very important part here. A lot of the strongest claims right now are coming from brands, product developers, or people connected to selling these expensive products. And that does not automatically mean that they are wrong, but it does mean we should be careful about thinking that everything these brands say are absolute truths. So what does the current studies and evidence actually says? Does exolactate has proof for those 5% improved power? So if we look closely at this part of their ad where they present all of these numbers, in the lower bottom right corner here in very small text you can see that it says from internal studies unpublished 2026 N of 10. So these numbers are not coming from a published peer-reviewed independent study, they seem to come from their own internal unpublished data with only 10 participants. And to be fair, if that study is done well, this is still a really interesting early signal. It could be an early sign that there is something potentially really good here. But a small internal unpublished study with only 10 people is very far from proving that this kind of lactate gels have this massive improvement. And until the full data from this is published and other researchers can look at it and more similar studies with a bigger testing group can be done, I don't think we should take these numbers as strong evidence. But I actually found some actual published peer-reviewed studies on taking in lactate and endurance performance. And this very relevant study from 2024 tested oral lactate supplementation in trained cyclists during a prolonged high-intensity interval protocol. And they found that lactate supplementation changed acid-base balance and actually reduced the perceived exertion, which is really interesting. But the important part is this. In this study, it did not improve cycling time trial performance. But the little evidence that is out there is not all bad. In this small pilot study from 2024, they found that a commercial oral lactate supplement improved the average power by about 4% in a 20-minute cycling time trial. And that is for sure interesting, but it was also a small study of 15 participants. So this study is also promising for the idea. But from what I can find, the evidence that lactate gels massively improve endurance performance is mixed and for sure not fully convincing yet. It is not proven in the way that caffeine is proven, it is not proven in the way the high carb fueling is proven, and it's not proven in the way sodium bicarbonate is proven. And there are also some practical problems with taking lactate. First, the dose probably matters a lot. If the dose is too low, maybe it has no effect at all. If the dose is too high, maybe the stomach does not like it. And in this study from 2024, where they saw no real change in performance, they also reported stomach problems as a side effect. And as every runner knows, it does not matter how good a gel looks in a lab setting if your stomach can't handle it and you get stomach problems mid-race. So based on all of this, should you use lactate gels in your next race? Right now, I would say it's interesting to experiment with, and we will probably have a lot more interesting studies in a year from now, and I will follow it closely. But for now, I would say that for most endurance athletes, the biggest fueling gains are still simple. Use caffeine and bicarb that are more proven performance enhancers combined with a great carb intake strategy. and for sure practice your fueling in training. And a short plug here, because this is exactly why I built my fueling app. If you want some help creating great race and training fueling plans, monitoring your gut training and optimize the more proven fueling strategies with carbs, caffeine and bicarb, you can try the app for free for 7 days through a link in the description. And I have not yet included lactate intake strategies in my app because I simply don't think the evidence is strong enough for that. But maybe we'll get there, because the idea of lactate yields is physiologically really interesting. And if better and more studies start showing real performance benefits without stomach problems, this could become another real solid fueling hack. Let me know, what do you think? Do you think many endurance athletes will eat lactate in a year from now, or will it die out? Train smart, have fun, and I'll see you in the next video.